Welcome to Speak with Purpose, a celebration of thought and influence, where bold ideas ignite action. Join Christine Gagnon and the TEDxCatawba community in shaping the future.
Hello, everyone. I'm Christine Gagnon, founder and organizer of TEDxCatawba. We're actually here today to introduce me, which is very interesting. I have one of our lovely sponsors, Sandra Myers. She is the president and co-founder of Select Date Society. Love her, personal friend, and a wonderful sponsor of TEDxCatawba. So I am going to let you interview me and do this role reversal.
Yeah,
Here we
this
are.
is exciting because I don't get to interview people often unless they want to date. So for business-wise, this is a lot of fun. And, Christine, I think most people, when they think about TEDx, and especially TEDx in Catawba County, they're wondering, first of all, how did you get here? And, what brought you to Catawba County to begin with?
That is a very interesting question. I should let our listeners know that you're actually in the room with me. So if people see me looking this way, I'm paying attention. So my husband and I, we were living in London actually up until 2019. And he had said to me, hey, I want to sort of move to the States. And what do you think about that? And I had been overseas for quite a long time. So we had, before I'd gone to London, I was in Johannesburg, and then I was in London before that. So I had been gone for probably 4 years. And so for me, it was time to come home. And so when I asked him, I was like, well, where do you want to move? He said, I don't know. I'm like, well, that's really helpful. Thank you. So we ended up actually looking at a map of the US and saying, okay, we know we don't want to be in this state or that state. And we sort of narrowed it down to about 13 states.
Mm-hmm.
And then we came up with this list of, I'm not kidding you, 89 attributes of where we wanted to live. And it was everything from proximity to a fault line to days of precipitation per year to political affiliation and mix. So a really interesting experiment. And I would say it's sort of a pseudo algorithm that we ran. Part of it was manual, part of it was automated, but we ran, these 89 attributes through these processes, and there were 5 houses that came up. One was in Georgia. I think one was in, I want to say Alabama, and 3 were in Hickory, North Carolina. So
That's
I'm like,
amazing.
whoa, I know, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I was like, well, that's sort of, I don't know if it's statistically significant, but it's significant enough where it caught my attention. And so we looked at the 5 houses, and one really stood out to me. I was like, I want that house. And it's actually the one we're in today doing this podcast. And so we literally did a FaceTime with the owner. I did. And I looked at the house. I'm like, yep, want it. Great. Put in an offer. And like the rest was history. The first time I saw the house was at close.
Yeah, I know. The owners must have thought you were not for real.
They did. They were like, can we have 17 forms of ID? Because we're not quite sure if this is, a legit thing. I'm like, no, I'm serious. Like, to me, and I know we kind of deviate, but home buying, I find shouldn't be as an emotional of a decision as people make it. And so for me, I felt like it would be much less regrettable if we did a data-based analysis to make this decision. And here we are, we're 6 years later, and I'm quite happy with our decision, and I'm hoping and I'm confident it will stay that way.
Well, being my husband's a home appraiser, I can guarantee you, number one, you came at the right time and you got a beautiful house.
Thank you.
You did good there. That's shocking. I mean, to be in London, picking a house off a map. I mean, I've never in my life. But so what, you came to Hickory. Clearly, you've connected with a lot of people here, including myself. But one of the things that I really enjoyed about you being from New York originally is that you had more of a bigger ideas on things, and you were looking at things ahead of what is here. So why don't you share with me, like, what made you decide to bring TEDx to Catawba County?
Yeah, so I have been involved in TEDx forever and a day. I mean, probably since 2009, being at PwC, I attended my first TEDx, and I was mesmerized by the concept of getting really good ideas on the table, getting great speakers. And so I guess as the years passed, I stayed involved and on the speaker coaching side. And when I got to London, I didn't know like really anyone other than maybe a few people at work. And so TEDx became my way of regaining my footing
Hmm.
socially,
Yeah.
and it became near and dear to my heart. So I made some really close friends who I actually go with to Big TED every year. And so last year I came home from TED, and I remember being at TED, and I had some questions from folks like, hey, why don't you do a TEDx? You're a speaker coach for TEDx Columbia Business School. You worked at London Business School. Why don't you do your own? And I thought, well, that's really interesting. And as you know, I went through a major career shift last year in
I do.
January, right? When I left the organization I was at to go
Yeah.
and start my own thing. And so I thought, well, gosh, it's a really good time to do this. On top of that, um, I had gotten really heavy into technology. So technology wasn't something that was as ingrained in my life or in my professional career as it is now. And so I really wanted to get more involved in that domain. And so everything just seemed ripe for the picking for me to apply for my license. So I did, and here we are. I mean, in terms of why I wanted to bring it here is I feel like there's a lot to share. There's so many great ideas out there meaning outside of, Catawba. We named after the river, but there's also great ideas here that are very worth sharing outside of our community. So it goes both ways. And so I thought if I can broker that intellectual exchange, then we're all better off. And so that really inspired me. And it's inspiring, but it's also quite scary, right? This is the first time, and we've got a lot of planning to do, but I'm very, very excited.
So do you feel, because this is definitely a smaller town, not for long, after being, Hickory especially being voted one of the top cities for the beauty on its affordability. We have, I think, exploded, and it's just a small piece of Catawba County. But what has been the reception of you bringing this here, and, how well received has it been so far?
I think it's a learning experience. We get everything from, oh, we didn't know there was a TEDx here to, oh, is this TEDx Hickory? And we should explain, I guess, that
Yeah.
to our listeners that there is this progression. And so TEDx Hickory is sort of turning into TEDx Catawba because
Hmm.
we want to be broader. We want to be more of kind of a regional type event. And so I think the reception has been, for those who know and are excited, has been positive. For me, the most important thing to do is to get the word out, because once we tell people about it, they're like, oh my gosh, when is it? Can I come? And who's coming and who's speaking and how do I get involved? So I feel that passion and I feel that excitement. But visibility, I think, is something we really want to focus on, which is why we're actually, doing this podcast and pushing to get the word out.
So bringing this to Catawba County and having your first TEDx Catawba in June. I mean, what was the thought process? What was the guide to get this first one going?
Well, I'm a planner and I might have light OCD.
Yeah.
So for me, when I came up with the idea last May, I was like, I need a lot of runway, right? We need runway to do this because we need to find the right sponsors. We
Hmm.
need to make sure our speaking circuit's set up. We also need to make sure that I don't lose my damn mind. So,
Yes, that too.
so when I actually applied for the license, like, oh, the license is only good for 12 months. So they wanted me to have it in May of this year. And I was like, I need more time than that. And I need to really have more than a year runway. Something about that psychologically was like,
Yeah,
I need
well,
to
it
have
goes
it more
fast.
than a year, right? And here we are. We're only what, a couple months out, 2.5 months
Hmm.
out. It's completely um, it, mind blowing. I would say one thing that was important to me when we did bring it was like June seemed like a good month, right? It's the beginning of the summer. We start to get kind of excited. It's not too scorching hot because part of this is outside. But the other thing was, and we should point this out for our listeners, was I didn't want it to just be everything Hickory. And so we did look at venues all across, I would say, the county and beyond. And for us, given the audience that we hope to have and some of our technical requirements, we are having it at the Drendel. We love the Drendel. They're very wonderful to work with. But then we said, okay, well, what can we do outside of Hickory to really bring the community more together? And just remember, we're TEDxCatawba. So we're having the pre-party out in Newton. I think you were there for our soiree where we did a test launch. And so we're excited to say that, we're being, I think, multifaceted about this. And so we picked June. It was kind of ad hoc. It was not May. It was more than a year. So I'm like, great. Okay. That buys me time. Fantastic. And I would also say, just to add, we had our speaker roster done in November of last year. So plenty of time to really test drive some of the things that we're doing. And I don't feel like my head is going to just fall off my shoulders.
Well, that's good news because your head looks good where it's at.
Thank you.
So what's the goal? Like come June, you do your first event, like your big, huge event,
Right.
Your yearly TEDx. What's the goal for you personally? And then what's the goal for TEDxCatawba?
So I have a couple of different goals. They're all, I would say, intermingled in a way. But one of the goals, so I have many, but one of the goals I have is to literally kind of bring those good ideas in and push those great ideas out. So every speaker I've handpicked because I feel like they have a lot to add to the discussion. And so one of the discussions we'll go into is artificial intelligence. It's a huge topic. And as you know, I'm doing my doctorate around finance related to artificial intelligence investments. And so meeting speakers like Blaise Aguirre-Arcus, who I actually spoke to today, is great. His philosophical thinking around artificial intelligence is very different. It's very cutting edge. And so I felt like having him come here, because I socialize every now and again, and I hear a lot of people saying, I don't understand this, and how do I even conceptualize this, and how do I get familiar? And so I thought, gosh, he would be great to bring in. And I mean, every single speaker has a story. Local speaker, Dr. Kathy Wilson, she went to medical school at 43. Like I'm 43. And I can imagine that. But a lot of people want to do that and can't imagine that, right? And so it's like breaking through that fear of starting over or taking on an incredible change, taking a risk. And so I want to share this with people. There's just so much great knowledge and thinking out there. And so that's my goal number one, is to really give back to the community in that way, and highlight some of the local talent and thought leaders that we have here. And then bring some kind of cool ideas in and get people talking. I think, especially in the area of artificial intelligence, because I think it's intimidating. And if we can help people, when I was talking to Blaise today, we were talking about like the goal of his talk would be to leave people with a sense of a conceptual framework around artificial intelligence. So it's not so abstract. It's not so scary, if you will. So that's maybe the goal overall, is to really share that knowledge. I would say the goal of TEDxCatawba will continue to be that in perpetuity as long as we exist, maybe to shift more towards an even balance between local speakers and outside speakers. So we hope to achieve that over time. And then for me, I think it's all related, because I'm personally driven by knowledge and intellect. As you know, we're sitting in my office, like I'm kind of a nerd. And I totally own that. And I want to live in my nerddom, and I want to share the joy. And so I'm getting fulfilled by doing this. And it's one and the same in terms of personally and with the brand.
So for you, this passion project, because I really feel that from you, from when you started talking about this over a year ago to seeing it be brought into conception to already seeing the AI event that we went to, here locally in Hickory.
We did.
Yeah. And that was, it's really interesting what you were saying about AI. One of the things, I think the fear of it is you have your known knowns and then your unknown knowns.
Yes.
And this is an unknown known. Like we know it's here, we know it's coming, but there's the unknown part of how is it going to be facilitated? Like, and is it going to replace people? That was, I have to say, one of the most eye-opening events that I've been to in this area in a long time. And it wasn't anybody taking sides. It was just having a conversation. I believe Microsoft was the
Yes.
one, and they're, I think, building a couple of data centers here.
$1 billion investment into this
Right.
area,
Which
it's
is
incredible.
huge. But
Yeah.
who would even know about this if, you hadn't sparked the fire of bringing, knowledge and education to the communities that don't typically or aren't known for it. So, we're lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you. Well, one of the things I was surprised about was like I didn't know that our area is a data center corridor, right? We have Google here, we have Apple here, we have
Yes.
Microsoft
Yep.
here and coming. And so there's a huge amount of investment and potential. And so we had the Economic Development Corporation also at that event, and meeting them, knowing them, they're one of the sponsors of TEDx. So I'm so happy to hear and see them partnering with us. On your comment on artificial intelligence, I completely agree. And I think the topic for that particular conversation was more around generative artificial intelligence. But I was telling Blaze, we were talking about this morning, like we really think we've just hit the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more that will come. And when I go out and I socialize rarely, as you know, I do hear that fear. And my thing is, if we don't get people or work to get people on the same page and a little more comfortable, this is a fast moving train. It's not going to stop. So I almost feel like if you don't get on the train to at least understand it, then you're going to get further and further behind. And this is sort of irrelevant and a tangent, but I was just talking to a friend who's thinking through her career, and she's looking at whether she goes and takes a promotion or not. And one of the things we talked about was, some of my friends that are in finance and accounting and traditional roles feel like they may become obsolete. And so that's scary. And I've been very fortunate. Like I sort of tripped over artificial intelligence because of my recent corporate role that I left. And it was, I wouldn't say it was handed to me. I had to, let's say, tug at it to get that role. But ultimately it changed my life. It changed my life because it broadened my perspectives. It made me more intellectually curious in that way. I'm even focusing my doctorate studies on it, right? And so I'm very passionate about this particular topic. And so that's why I wanted to go with you to that event. That's why it'll be a heavy focus on this year's TEDx. And I hope that it continues to be, T stands for technology. And I hope that we stay true to that, and that our future speakers, we have an element of technology embedded throughout every year consistently. That's my hope.
Yeah, interestingly enough, when I went to that event with you, I really was thinking of AI more as a replacement of rather than an assistant to. And I think that's where I left that I don't know what you call, it was an event or a forum or whatever.
Symposium.
And you did have one guy that was like really
I was going to actually,
yeah, and he was like, "Give me the mic." And I remember you. And I was sitting thinking, "Oh my gosh, this guy is like, it's like this is something out of a movie." He's grabbed the mic. Did you know about this? And it was just so funny. But I left with the complete opposite reaction to it, which was, and believe it or not, I'm using it in my business a lot now.
Yeah.
So, and I see it as that, as an assistant to taking the time constraint items on the table and giving it to the AI to take the time constraint off, because it has no effect on the business, but in a positive sense of giving us more time to do what we really should be doing. So yeah, it was an eye-opener for me, for sure.
The guy or the event or both?
Oh no, the guy, he was a little scary.
Well, that was like,
I have to say.
That's my point, right? So for our audience, what we're referring to is, there's some questions that the audience posed that were fear-based, and I understand that. And so, yes, that was a very interesting thing. On your first comment around, the tool, and I don't want to give away Blaze's shtick, but, he's sort of thinking beyond the tools and a different way to conceptualize what artificial intelligence really is. And so I think there's so much exciting information to come from his studies and his philosophies. And so, his book's coming out and all of that. And I think what we really focused on when we were at that event was generative artificial intelligence. And I have to say, yeah, it's a game changer. Even when I'm looking to research a topic or I want to take some things off my plate, it really is an intellectual companion. I'll go that far to even say that. And I know that's fairly provocative, but it's true. I have conversations with ChatGPT, for example, and no offense to like my friends and family. I mean, he/she like is able to keep up, and sometimes they're not going to get bored of them talking to it for 3 hours
Right.
about something kind of
Yeah.
random,
Or at 3 o'clock in the morning.
right, or three
Yeah,
o'clock in the
they're
morning,
up.
or when I'm like panting at the gym, So absolutely game changing. We've just kind of hit the tip of the iceberg, as I said. By the way, did you see Elon Musk's new robot,
I
Kalina?
did. Oh my God, I want one of them.
I know.
That would be
Like,
so cool.
can cook for you, right? I need
Yes.
that. I'm
That would be,
so,
yeah, I'm the cook in the house. So yes, I would love that guy.
I
What's his
used to
name?
be,
What did they call it something? I
it's
thought they
called Kalina is the robot's
Oh,
name.
Kalina,
Yeah, I
Kalina
want it.
Mahausa, right?
I want it. I want it like right now. Well, see, I've always been afraid of technology and that I don't want to be like the first adopter. I always feel like
Right.
that's bad news bears. But I think I'm over it now. Like I think I've broken out of that shell where I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll try it. Well, we have like Amazon Astro and that little robot thing. I
Yeah.
mean, so I think it could deliver a little bit more, but okay. But we were kind of first to try it.
Yeah,
So
but think about it, just even 20, 25 years ago.
I know.
Okay. 30 years ago when I got started in my industry, I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have a computer. I didn't have any
I
of
can't
this
even
stuff.
imagine that now,
I know
right?
it's insane to think, and I've totally put my numbers out there. But the fear was with computers. You remember Y2K, year 2000,
Oh, I do. Oh my
everybody was just going
gosh.
to be like, the whole world was ending. The fear of it, I've learned that fear just means misunderstood. And the only way to get rid of the fear is to get understanding. That's why I was so
I agree.
interested in what you were bringing to the table. And actually, coming from New York, lived in South Florida, I was used to having access to a lot of information just generally around people
Mhm.
that you commingle with.
Right.
And here it's a little bit, of a bubble because we're kind of outside of the
It's
city,
different.
outside of the mainstream. And I think that what you're doing for this county is going to change a lot of people's. I even think like the younger generation, how they view and how they see what they want to gear their sights on. So I think, Christine, what you may not see is how big of an item and an addition of what you're bringing to the table for this county. That would not have happened without your ingenuity and your tenacity to get things done.
I appreciate that so much. And I'm teaching at App State now, and I see it. I see it kind of coming full circle, and I'm excited because I do believe there's so much potential, right?
Right.
We are teaching the next generation and our future accountants, and the more we can equip them with those skills and that understanding, the better off we are. So literally for me, it's kind of come full circle, and I feel it's my responsibility to bring some of this to the table. And I think we're doing that. We have Lenore Ryan here. We have several prestigious academic institutions. I do agree too on your point that it's very easy for me, and I do this more than I should, but it's to stay in my house and, not go out. Versus when I lived in London, it's like, gosh, to get anything done, like you have to go out of your house. And, I lived in a small flat, or when I lived in New York, it's a studio flat I lived in. That's boring. It's like you're
Right.
out there and you're doing things and you're meeting people. And I almost feel like, and there's goods and bads about this, but I literally could like not leave my house, especially DoorDash and things like that. I'm just like, okay, I haven't left my house in 7 days. Great. So I'm glad you feel that way. I'm really excited about the potential here, even though it's a huge undertaking. And well, thankfully, to sponsors like yourselves, we can actually, pull this off. Maybe a reverse question for you.
Oh, goodness.
So,
I
I
wasn't
can't
up for
help
this.
myself. What's when I pitched the idea to you,
Mhm.
you were supportive straight out of the gate, and you were so excited. You continue to be excited. Like, you're one of my biggest cheerleaders. I really appreciate that.
Well, you're welcome. It's
What
deserving.
I know you shared a lot about kind of how you feel about the potential, but like, what struck you when we first talked about this, where you're like, I must be involved. This is amazing. Let's go do it.
Yeah, I think it's just coming from a big city mentality, and seeing things from so many different perspectives and having that network of people
Mm,
very easily.
right.
It's not hard to do. You go to work and you've got people from over here, over there, from other cities, other countries, like in Manhattan. During Christmas time, you have every single country in the world,
It's true.
and you meet people from all over the world. I didn't even have to go anywhere
You don't have to
when
try,
I was
right?
younger. You just met people from all over, and it was an education living in New York City.
Mm,
I felt like when I went to college, I went to University of South Florida. When I got there, I just felt like most of the kids that came from smaller towns, they had not been exposed. And I felt like I was here and they were here. And I felt like I didn't really quite fit in because my speed of wanting to understand and know something and their speed and curiosity, maybe that intellectual
right, right, right.
curiosity, I think that's where I've been like a little hungry for, wanting somebody to be intellectually curious, wanting to open the gates to what's going on in the big cities and bring that to this arena. So as soon as you said it, I was just like, yes, this is exactly what we need. I hate that I didn't do it myself.
We're doing it
Where
together.
we
I
kind of
love
are.
it. So, I'm gonna hand it back to you. But is there anything else you think the audience should know about me? I don't want to be too like, hey, it's me, but like, I know myself. I would say, unfortunately, when I first got here, or fortunately, there are pluses and minuses to everything. I spent a lot of time in New York, and so the first couple of years I lived here, I went back and forth to Manhattan every week, and so I didn't get to know the
Hmm.
community as well as maybe I should have, or maybe as I will as we get deeper into TEDxCatawba. So I would be happy to kind of delve into any area that you think would be helpful for our audience to get to know me, because to be honest, I'm not sure that I have a huge personal following here just because I haven't been around.
Yeah, I mean, I think that your background alone, most people who would meet you would never know. I mean, we
Really?
could take a swing and shoot the camera this way, and there's one,
Oh,
two, three,
here.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, about 12 degrees and certificates on her wall. There's no room. And I think the
There
fact
really isn't.
that you've accomplished so much, but you would never know it by meeting you.
Oh, thank you.
You're so humble about it. And it's what I love about you. That's one of the reasons why I encouraged you to get out on your own. I'm a
Yes, you did.
huge
That was a
promoter
big career move, and
of
I
you.
have to give you a good amount of credit for helping me spread my wings there, right?
I know how to pick winners. I knew it when I met you. And I
Yay.
didn't even know all of what I know now. And I think that they would probably love to hear a little bit of your history and what gave you the skills and the tools and to get to this and bring it to this county in such an incredible, remarkable way. Because if they had all gone to the soiree, they would know what's coming.
Yeah. See, I've always felt like a square peg in a round hole kind of problem for most of my career. And at some points that was a stronger feeling than others. So,
How so?
I
What do you mean by that?
well, I started my career at PwC, which I love that firm. I am a huge fan. It is like my alma mater, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah.
But I would say, that I trained there for 10 years, and then I went out, into the world outside of the firm, and it wasn't always a smooth adjustment. So then I went to a bank where I worked with the C-suite and the vice chairman on strategy. That was really interesting. But it didn't feel like my calling per se. There
It
were
was a
things,
job.
yeah, it was a job, and I really enjoyed the people I met. The things we were doing were really important, but I would say my heart, my passion, that wasn't it. And so when we sold the bank, I went back to public accounting. I went to EY. And nothing against the firm. I love that firm as well, but I was trained in another firm. And so that sort of becomes like a bit of a conflict, because you're raised in a certain culture and then you go
Yeah.
to another firm and it's a different culture. And so
Hmm.
that wasn't really my calling. I kind of landed on my feet, I think. If I think about timing, I started my career in 2002. I didn't feel like I landed on my feet until 2019 when I took the CFO role at the firm in New York, because there I just had so much autonomy to make decisions, work with smart people, work with the board. And not that I hadn't worked with smart people before, but I was always, I would say, lower on the food chain, and rightfully so. I was more junior in my career, but it was then and there that I really started to feel like I could make judgments and really had a lot of responsibility on my shoulders. Some people don't want that. I really was hungry for it, and that worked out nicely. And then, as you know, I kind of pivoted and took a different role in 2023 to 2024, which, personally was not for me. Ended up going back to the firm, and I'm still there, and I'm still the CFO of Roha Group. But that's been an interesting progression. When I say, square peg round hole, I think it took me a long time to find the fit where I feel like I love what I do every day. Some days, yeah, okay, like it's shitty, but like as a general matter, I'm relatively happy. And on the podcast this morning with Blaze, I was saying that like we're lucky that we can do what we're passionate about, and that now I'm no longer this, square peg round hole thing. I feel like I properly fit to where I'm supposed to be. And maybe to address the wall of non-fame behind us.
It's impressive.
We need to make room though. So I love school. I love learning. And I feel like if I'm not learning, I have this sort of anxiety that I'm going to waste away. And I mean that physically. I think, they say like brain health, and, the more you do, the more you use it, you don't lose it, kind of thing. And I subscribe to that. I don't know all the science behind it, but intellectually, I subscribe to that philosophy. And I've always felt like I needed to scratch my intellectual itch. And so I had this, when I graduated undergrad, I did accounting. I didn't always want to do accounting. I actually was in finance. But then I realized like, oh my God, this is really hard. And like, I don't know if I'm going to get a job. And so one of my friends, his name's Justin, he said, why don't you do accounting? The big four firms hire you. It's easy to get a job. Like, it kind of makes sense. I'm like, ooh, I like to de-risk my portfolio here. So I switched majors, started at PwC. And then I was like, I don't know if this is my calling. Maybe it was finance. Maybe it's something else. So I went back and I did my MBA. And then I didn't solve the question. I met some great people. I traveled around the world, but then I'm like, I need to go to law school. So then I went to law school, and I was like, oh, I love the law. And I'm always interacting with attorneys, and I want to be sharp, right? I want to kind of like at least 10% know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so I did that. And so for me, I don't think I'll ever stop going to school. People are like, when are you going to stop? Are you done yet? And I'm like, no, I'm never going to be done until I can't anymore. And then, well, that's probably the end there. So and that's also related to why I firmly believe in TED's mission and having a TEDx here, because it's all related. People sometimes say to me, well, you have like 5 jobs, right? Like, oh, you're a professor and you're doing your doctoral studies and you have a TEDx and you're a CEO and you're CFO. And I'm like, I don't view it like that. I view these things as very closely related, especially, the first 4, because it's all about learning, it's all about intellect, it's all about ideas. And so for me, it's all kind of one big pie, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's one job, just segmented.
Yeah.
On different days at different times.
Exactly. So I'm excited to keep learning. I mean, it's going to be interesting. And maybe, out of my doctoral studies, we'll get more topics for TEDx and vice versa. It's kind of a ecosystem, where one thing kind of feeds the other. And this is so random. I'm so excited because we are going to launch this podcast the week of, Big TED, where we have TED in Vancouver. And that is April 7th. So that's also coming up. And I love the ideas I kind of get and the inspiration I get from going to TED every year, and, what we can bring back. So there might be some great ideas to share.
You always bring me back some cool stuff.
I know they treat us so well. I know they're like, save room in your suitcase. So every year I always come back with a multitude of things. So yes, look out for your goodie bag. We'll share.
Yeah, you always share with me, and I love that.
Oh,
well, I think we could conclude that
awesome.
This is just a very exciting time for Catawba County. You transporting yourself to Hickory off of a very who knows if we could put all the 89 questions together? You might want to put that together for some people. Clearly, it's worked out well
In
for
that
you.
laptop right here, but don't tell anyone.
Okay. Well, you might want to sell that algorithm to people that are across the world and the country. But at the end of the day, I think you're shining a spotlight on, learning and just being open and aware to what's going on instead of, deciding before you even know. And I think that's the biggest thing that I'm getting out of this and working with you and knowing you. And you're an absolute rock star. So I
Thanks.
know that it's going to be in great hands. But I want you to let everybody know that can be a part of it and when it is, what to expect, and
Yeah, sure.
The exciting things that they can look forward to.
Well, first of all, I'll say knowledge is power, right? And so the more knowledge we spread, the more powerful we become as individuals and as a community. So that's one of my philosophical beliefs. And I think in terms of what people can expect, so we have got a bunch of exciting things well, we actually have a wine tasting in case anyone's interested at Dash. So Dash, my lovely friend Holly Woodward is the owner there. Dash Home and Kitchen will be doing a wine tasting with our friends at Advantage Distributing on May 19th, I think is the date. It's a Monday. And so that's the first opportunity, well, the more recent opportunity for people to get to know us a little bit better. I'll be there as some of the team members, and you're welcome to come. I think you are coming that day, so that's great. Yeah. And then in terms of TEDx, so on Friday, the 13th, dun, dun, dun.
That's great.
I know, right? Friday, 5:30 at Boutique Auberge. Rena Norwood owns it. She's amazing. We had the October event there. She'll be hosting our pre-party. And
nice.
We will have live music. We will have wine. We actually have a Napa Valley wine producer, Jamie Whetstone, coming. And he is going to be tasting with us some of the wines from his vineyard, which I'm so excited about.
Nice.
Advantage Distributing will be there. Our speakers will be there. So the community can, take the opportunity to meet each of the speakers that we have. And then we will go into Saturday, bright and early. We start very promptly at 9, so please show up early. And we will go until 3:00. And then at 3:00, we'll have a Meet the Speakers event. It'll be on site, but in a different building. So it's just a quick walk over in the Kaiser room. And so for those who purchase a VIP or Friends ticket, we will spend more time with the speakers, get to know them a little bit better. We'll have kind of a cool swag shop that I'm working on. So whether
what are the dates for that?
Because that's June 14th.
Okay, June 14th.
Yep.
So those tickets can be...
They're on Eventbrite. So our website has a link to Eventbrite, or you can find us on Eventbrite. The easiest way to find us is probably on TEDxCatawba.com. Right. And then the links are there. And so the pre-party tickets are on sale now. The event tickets are on sale as well. And so we're ready. We're excited. I want to thank the community in advance for the support we've been shown thus far. I'm really excited. This is also, I don't know if I told you this, like a Hickory branded event. So the city is working with us as well. And we have Mayor Hank Guest coming to both events. And we're working to get some of the other cities and municipalities involved to make this, a broader event. But so far we've had a wonderful support from our community, which we're absolutely grateful for.
Well, if anybody knows, I know her personally. So when Christine throws an event, it's a gala. It is not a, hey, come over, have a little wine and some hors d'oeuvres. It is literally like going to the White House, and there's this gorgeous...
The White House. It literally is a White House.
It is a White House. But anyway, it was wonderful having you here today and sharing about what's going to be going on. And we will look forward to that June 14th.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I will see you then.
All right.
To all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Tune in next week for another episode of Speak with Purpose to get insights into our speakers, sponsors, and partners for TEDxCatawba. You can also learn more about our independently organized TEDx event and purchase your tickets on our website, TEDxCatawba.com. We're also on social media. It's TEDxCatawba. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and X. Thank you so much, and see you next week.